All right, and we are live. Happy to be here today. Phyllis, there's no Andrew Morgan today, so you know what that means? No
I'm
announcements. So that gives us like 20 minutes more show. Right?
hilarious.
Yeah. Awesome. So we today can get right into it. Today we're going to be talking about an MSP's journey through M&A, but also in terms of the role that security and security maturity has played in that journey. So, Phyllis, I'm going to introduce our guests, Tyler and Mark from Pace Technical. And Tyler, we'll start with you. Maybe just give us a little background on Pace.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Gary, and exciting to be here. Thanks for having us. Yeah, quickly, I mean, Pace, we're based out of Toronto, Canada. Been in the managed services space for about 25 years. Before pre-acquisition, which was just a couple of weeks ago, we're supporting about 140, 150 businesses. Half of those are law firms. We're 60 to 65 total employees. And always had this big focus on the legal vertical. So like I said, it's about 50% of our client base, and continues to be a big part of our marketing efforts and focus.
Awesome. Mark, a little about your background.
Yeah, so I started off in technology like most of us. I was in on the development side. Got an opportunity to get into the banking system, into enterprise space early in my career, and quickly moved into leadership roles and put away the programming and started focusing on leading and managing people and technology. I spent about a decade in the enterprise space, helping to manage data centers and people. Joined Tyler at Vertex about 3-4 years into Vertex's existence, and I guess the rest is history, so to speak. We joined up and took, small MSP that was about 5 or 6 employees at the time, and here we are, 12 years later, transacting, and it's been a great journey.
Yeah, I'll add a couple things to their story since I've worked with you guys I've been lucky enough to work with you for so long. And so Tyler, you founded Vertex, Legal Vertical MSP, and another one of our peer group members, Pace, also in Toronto. The partners decided to merge those companies a few years back, and then just recently announced it was acquired by IT Solutions. Full disclosure, I'm a board member of IT Solutions. So this is a closely held transaction. But from my standpoint, I've got to watch you, build the company really from scratch, to what it is today. And that has been amazing. So Tyler, I want to start with you. And first, tell us about like the recent acquisition in terms of like the journey to get to that point.
Yeah, well, it certainly has been a journey. You summarized that well. Yeah, so quick history. We talk about Vertex, we talk about Pace, and having come together in 2022. Pace and Vertex had known each other for many years through True Methods and peer group, and it just started to make more and more sense for us to bring our MSPs together. Coming out of COVID, I think a lot of MSPs, a lot of people in the IT space were having a hard time acquiring new talent, retaining their talent. So we could, by coming together, kind of gain some economies of scale there, have a little more protection in our workforce in terms of some more redundancy in roles, deeper skill set. So we completed, or we started that merge in 2022, and it was sort of, a 1-year journey. And then we started thinking, the next chapter would be looking into acquisitions, and looked at, there's a lot of suitors out there. Anyone in this space probably is getting approached on almost a daily basis, people interested in acquiring your MSP. But for us, we took our time, didn't really engage too heavily with many, and sort of watch what others in our peer group were doing, so we could kind of get some real world experience on the type of transaction they had, sort of the reasons that they chose the people that they went with. For us, it was really important that it was going to be a good structure for our employees, for our clients. None of us wanted this as an exit strategy from the owner's perspective. We all wanted to stay on board, continue the journey, but de-risk, move some of that, brought in our team as we did in the original merge, but now take it, from 60, 65 people to close to 500. And have a really good opportunity for our employees and better protection for our client base. So
yeah, that's really important. And I hear people often when they talk about, I spend a lot of time in the M&A world, right? And when I talk to people, I hear a lot about valuations and multiples and like that's important, but I feel like it's kind of been scienced out. And there's other things, right? Like you mentioned it. What do I want to do? What do I want what's important to my team and their opportunities? What about my customer base? And all those, and again, and you have the luxury today of being able to prioritize, those things, in terms of making a decision. So really good. I mean, I know that you guys are really thoughtful in terms of how you think through things. And I watch you go through this process, and you've handled it, with a lot of grace. I want to start talking a little bit about at a high level. What has for our cyber nation here? What role has security maturity played in the success of the business, especially like you're in a vertical that's pretty sensitive to security, right?
For sure. It's played a huge role. And I know everybody says the same thing. It's a journey, not a destination. And it really has been. And I think when we started to get a lot more serious about security, it started in-house in cleaning up our own MSP and really becoming internally security conscious MSP. So we treated our MSP as if we were a client to ourselves. So we got very structured in having a designated TAM, what we call our technology alignment managers, who are aligning our clients and our own business to industry best practices, security controls. So maybe that was about 5 years ago, we started to get really focused on treating our business like we would our top clients. And that helped us by maturing internally. It helped us to be more mature in presenting to our clients and really understanding, what we needed to do to secure our business more and start to mature security wise, and then be able to do that with our clients and be able to deliver that through VCIO and with new prospects through our sales cycle.
It's funny, Tyler. Every week we mention, put your life vest on first. So it's easy to say that, but it is not easy to do, right? Because clients are demanding service. And so to really treat yourself 100% proactively like a customer from a security standpoint, it is not an easy thing to do, is it?
Oh, no, definitely not. And it's sort of, what True Methods has taught us over the years is having designated proactive roles. And without that, I don't think we would have ever been able to do it, because there's always on the reactive side so much going on, so many, urgent pressing issues that are going to take priority over security alignments and best practices. So the fact that we had already established these proactive roles, proactive departments, allowed us to be able to dedicate their time to doing this internally first. But of course, you've got a lineup of projects, you've got a lineup of reactive tickets, things you want to do with clients. So you've got to make a very disciplined decision around how you're going to control those resources to aligning your business to these best practices.
So we're going to hand it over to Phyllis, then I'm going to come back and talk to Mark, dive deeper into the customer part of it. But before I do, I want to first ask you, like, the reaction of your employees, right? So you went by putting the companies together, and then you made this announcement. In general, and then afterward, What were some of the one-on-one conversations you had with people? Fears, excitement, perspectives, all of it.
I think there was more fear in our minds leading up to this than what actually transpired in announcing this to our team. When we merged, it was everybody warned you ahead of time that there's going to be all these unforeseen things that pop up. And no matter how aligned you are with two MSPs coming together and cultures and everything else, there's going to be surprises and there's going to be, some challenges along the way. So we just kind of come out on the other side of all of that and settled things down where we felt like, okay, now we really are this, one new MSP. We've successfully merged. We can kind of put that behind us. But guess what? Hey, now we're being acquired. So it was, mentally for us preparing, it was a little daunting just coming, getting everybody in their happy place and then rocking the boat with this. But it was received really well by our people. A lot of them kind of expected, they know the industry well enough to know that this is sort of a natural evolution now in the MSP space. A lot of our competitors had gone through this, but it was really important that the three owners in PACE were going to stay on and continue to be involved in this long term. We weren't looking, I mentioned earlier, we weren't looking for an exit strategy here. We were selling to a true MSP that wanted to continue to commit to the MSP process, help develop and grow in Canada, provide a lot of good career opportunities for our people, and stay committed to our client base also. So some of the things that were disruptive during the merge were bringing a couple of teams together, bringing all of our clients together, all the techs having to learn the other companies' clients. In this situation, we get to stay focused, our team, on our clients from a service interaction perspective. So I think there was a lot of relief in that we, and ITS bringing a dedicated integration team that's gone through this and done 6 of these prior to us. So the confidence in knowing that there's some experience backing this up and that we're committed and sticking to this and we're committed to the employee and client experience, it was received really well.
Yeah. It's funny because both when I sold my MSP and when I sold True Methods, it was the same thing. Like I was really concerned about that day, we announced, and each time the actual fear, once we, were sincere about where we were, why we did things, what would come was always much less than what I had, laying in bed awake that night before. Because our self-images are so tied up in our businesses, and creating opportunity for people, really that's what it's about. Right, being able to create opportunity for people. So that's awesome.
Phyllis, it opened up a whole new layer of positions, and that was going from 25, 30 employees on each side to 60, 65. Now going to, just shy of 500 employees. We know there's just positions we would have never been able to create in a 60, 70 person organization that exists now.
And we acquired a few other True Methods peer members that you're friends with, so you got to see their teams over the past couple of years and the opportunities they have. So it's good when you can look under the covers that way.
Helped a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Phyllis, I'm going to hand it over to you, and then I'm going to come back and talk to Mark.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So Tyler, you talked about, getting your own house in order first, which, as Gary says, we always emphasize here. So how important was it for you to have your operational maturity down as well before you actually, tried to implement security across the enterprise? And then you already talked about how important roles were, right? So I'm going to go a little bit off script for my second half of the question would be, we often talk about a culture of security. And so how was it that you were able to foster that?
Yeah, going to the, addressing the operational maturity question, that was really important to have in place first, because having really well-structured service delivery areas teach you how to, secure and how to deliver security in each of those areas. I already spoke about the role of the technology alignment managers and, running that department against our own company. So having, all of the structure in place prior to really maturing on our security side made it a lot easier to really understand, what are the proactive, dedicated roles towards security. Having a security and compliance team that could help dictate how we're going to manage change throughout the, change control throughout the organization, how, new projects have to get scrutinized from a security perspective, how, handling requests on service desks that come in, what security layers need to be embedded in the process in a lot of those roles and responsibilities. So we were already an ISO 9001 2015 business. So while not, that's really focused on the operational side of things, not at all on the security side. But going back to your question, that helped already having that framework, that ISO in place, so that when we started to layer in the security, it was easier to roll out between departments and clearly define roles and responsibility around security.
So did you create new roles for security? I mean, did you have to hire people? Did people
yes,
kind of grow into those roles, or dual hatted, or how did that come about?
Yeah, we did end up hiring a security expert to run or to lead our security teams, or security team and/or other departments. Building that, you talk about the culture, and we preach this to our clients all the time, that it starts from the top down, having a security-minded company and really developing a culture that security is everybody's responsibility. It seems obvious in an MSP that should exist, but I think people just assume because they're technical that it doesn't necessarily, those things don't apply to them. And I'm smart enough to know not to give someone admin credentials or to click on a link I shouldn't. And I don't need the proper hygiene on my machine. So I think, almost in an MSP, you need to reinforce it more, because people just take for granted that they're technical and maybe think that it doesn't apply. So we embed really, security into all of our conversations around, business goals, business planning, how we deliver our services. Every project, has an element of what's the security risk in deploying this, the change control around it. So really making it everybody's responsibility and awareness.
So Phyllis, real quick, I wanted to add on, you used that word culture. Could you feel it when security became part of your culture? Like, can you think about okay, it's starting to be in everybody's mind in everything we do?
Yes, especially when we went to discipline change control. That's where we saw it a lot more, where people weren't taking shortcuts and just implementing things after hours quickly without a lot of planning and thought around it. So the ramifications of something going wrong after hours, we were able to recover from. It happened a lot less. And people started, it was nice to hear within the company, people talking about, the security maturity and just the controls around security and everything we were doing. So it starts to, let's say, become somewhat contagious, that as soon as some people take on that responsibility and are taking it seriously, others feel compelled to as well.
I think that's great, because often it really is, when you already know about tech, you always think so it's like, it's okay for other people, but I'm the admin and I can do this, and I already know all the rules. And I think another thing to point out is a lot of organizations that I work with just say, oh, well, you also need support from the top. Like, if C-suite doesn't care, then no one else is going to care. So, I mean, I think you started off by saying that, it was kind of from the top, the first sentence.
Has to be, and that's what we're constantly preaching to our clients also. Is it's so ironic when the CEOs and the partners at a firm and stuff say, exclude me from MFA, and I'm not going through security awareness training or any of this, and they're the prime targets for people that are going to try to hack in and try to compromise somebody. It's going to be those top people. So without them being on board, it's an uphill battle for a company to build that security maturity they need.
Yeah, Gary also talks about
I was looking at a comment from Bob Miller. He knows exactly when they reached that point. It was during they did a physical tabletop and went through those things. So sometimes it literally is something that you do after you've been working that kind of gets everybody to see it in the same way.
Yeah, that's actually a great example, and a great reason to do those tabletop exercises. It brings that awareness, and then allows you to see your maturity as well. I did want to say Gary often says on this call that you have to have the right people in the meeting when you go to try to sell security to a client, because it's you do. And so often I get asked, like, well, how do I get money from the board? Where's the set of slides? Where is the magic kind of slide deck that I can show the board so I can get additional funding for security? And Gary always says, it's the business case. You have to make the business case for security. And we often say that too. So it's nice that you were able to get that support.
Yeah, having somebody else relay the message about the importance of security and investment that needs to be made does not go over well. Usually, they're not able to deliver it the same way we would directly to the right people.
Yeah. So you are a member of True Methods, as Gary said earlier, and so you get to see how other MSPs are faring and how everyone's doing over time if you stick with it. So from your view, do you see a direct correlation between security maturity and growth and profitability?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say the MSPs that are most mature in their security offerings, one, they're able to sell at a higher price for sure. They're able to usually add more onto the stack, so you get a lot more NRR or our type of projects or recurring revenue there. Usually there's less reactive problems. If the client is more secure, you have less security remediation to jump into because you've already done the upfront work to make them more secure. You're usually attracting larger clients. So in order for it to make sense, you're probably $6,000 and up on average for your client base. And usually, I would think in a lot of cases, selling over 200 a seat for more security mature MSPs and programs.
So I am going to go back to what I mentioned before, because I still do hear it very often. I mean, how hard was it to kind of, I don't want to say upsell, but upsell organizations on security? Like, how was that additional training you gave your folks? You talked about those roles and those functions, but that is often a topic of conversation as well on the call.
Yeah, I mean the two different sales sides. So one, new logo business. My partner Mike and I do most of that outside sales. So we believe in what we're preaching and what we're selling. So much of it is that belief system and just believing in what you're charging. You spoke about peer, and understanding what other people are successfully selling for helps build your belief and confidence too. If all of a sudden you hear people are selling $250 a seat, you start to believe the fact that you can also. If you don't know that and you're always going up against competitors and the prospects telling you you're the most expensive, a lot of people want to try to.
And they are, right? That's what they're telling you.
Yes. And if they're not telling me we're the most expensive, I feel like I haven't quoted enough, because we always should be the most expensive. And that's really our value proposition and the differentiators. We use that to show, like, if we're whatever, $50 more a seat, well, these are the reasons why you should be spending that, and the reasons not to go to another MSP who cannot afford to deliver the proper security in their service for that price. From a VCIO perspective, it took, it's more employee-driven VCIO in our company, so it took more training and understanding of what it is. But we have some mature VCIOs that firmly believe the importance of security, understand it well. So we say in every single VCIO meeting, there needs to be a conversation around security. Even if you spoke about it last time, the same thing. You want to always lead with what is the best in a perfect world. What would you recommend that client adopt from a security perspective, even if it doesn't seem realistic that a smaller client's going to spend another, whatever, $2,000 a month for this security layer. Our job is to advise them of where there's risk, how they can mitigate that risk, what the cost to mitigate that risk is, and ultimately it's their decision. And if you keep speaking to them about it, you hope one day they'll adopt it. If not, you've at least had those conversations. And if something goes wrong, and that what your recommendation could have at least alerted to it earlier, or mitigated that problem, you kind of get a get out of free jail card, because you've been preaching that to them over and over and over again, and it was on them to not approve that.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Like, would you ever walk away from a client? I'm totally going off
Yeah.
script. Sorry.
Well,
I mean, because
no,
we've talked about that as well. So I'm just curious, you know, your thoughts on that.
one in our security our MSP program, we bundle a lot of the core security elements into that. So we know if we're taking on a client, they're going to get all these different layers of security as part of it. Whether they think they need it or not, whether they already have something or not, that's our program. You're taking that at a minimum. We know that you at least have to get by, pass a cyber insurance policy, be able to pass those renewals, have all of those core components in place. If a client's not willing to, push out MFA to all of their employees and stuff, we will threaten to walk away. And if they are completely delinquent in it over and over, we will have to walk away because it's too much risk for us to assume.
Right. So what I'm hearing is you don't even offer that like zero security package.
There's no bronze, silver, gold, or anything. There's one platform, one program we offer, and then we'll just add on more security components to it. But our entry level program is always making sure that all the core things, EDR, firewall, 365 backup, all of our proactive TAM alignments, all of that is just bundled into our core package.
That's awesome. I'm curious, Gary, can we ask a question? Like, how many people on the call today, just as their baseline, already offer like a minimum security package and don't have a no security package? Right?
Yeah. If you only offer pretty much everything Tyler said, and you don't sell anything pewter or tin or plat, give us a 3 in the chat.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm curious, you talked about like looking at your peers. And one of the great things about the MSP community is you do have these peer groups, which is one of the only communities that I know of that actually does that and is active in it. So how has peer groups helped you in your journey? And what advice would you give other MSPs about peer groups?
Peer for us has, been the single most important thing we've done to get to where we are today, without a doubt. Right, Mark? I mean, there's just no way we would be where we are now without peer, without the coaching from True Methods, the collaboration with our fellow peer members, the accountability that the peer group brings out, the recommendations, the just understanding, packaging, pricing, what security tools, stacks are people using, what are, you finding success with, what isn't working. I mean, that's probably been 10 years now, and every year we've just continued to develop and grow and mature more because of peer group.
Yeah, and I want everyone to hear that, not as a commercial for True Methods, because we don't need a commercial right now, but a commercial for peer groups. And whether it is ours or one of the other peer groups that are out there, I don't know how you're in this industry right now with all the changes, thinking you're going to figure it out alone. There, you got to be out there.
What I like is it seems so interesting because it's always like, oh, but your competitors, perhaps, but you're still willing to be in the peer group and help each other out. So
that's
I
the
think
best part of it.
Yeah, you still have to be able to deliver, and you still have to. The one thing I'd say about peer group is, you have to be totally committed, vulnerable, and receptive to it to be successful. Seen a lot of people join peer over the years, and every quarter they're kind of presenting the same challenges. They're stuck at the same, MRR. They're stuck at the, low profit level, and they're not making changes because I don't know if they just can't commit to the tough decisions that need to be made, if they don't truly believe in it, or they think they have a better way. But the people that we see year after year being successful in it are the ones that are willing to be vulnerable, say that, I don't have it all figured out. And when you commit to things and you're collaborating as a peer group, and your suggestions, you go back and you deliver on those. And you go back and you come back the next quarter and you say, check, check, check. All of those things I set out to do this quarter got done, whether they're, really tough decisions that need to be made or just things that need to be implemented and require time. But if you're not committed to making the change and doing the things you're discussing as a peer group, there's a lot less value in it, definitely.
One thing, Phyllis, when you're in a peer group, you talk about people who look and say, well, there's competitors. Well, I mean, look, Would you rather have your competitor be learning more and being part of something and you're not? Number one. Number two, it is less of what you learn when you're in peer. It's less about your business as only the result. It's really about the business leaders figuring out the answers to the questions that Tyler just said, which is, why have I been in business for 6 or 7 years and I'm stuck here and everyone's telling me the same thing of what I need to do and I'm not doing it? Like, what is it about me? Like, what's going on with me? And that's what peer members, and he talks about getting vulnerable to figure out, like, what are those self-limiting beliefs that we all have? And together, you're more likely to be able to break each other's barriers. And when that happens, you end up with a better MSP that grows and is more profitable, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's great perspective. That's awesome. Yeah, so
Yeah, just because you tell people how to do something or how you're being successful in doing something doesn't mean they're actually going to do it. And more times than not, they actually don't. And you're like, it's right there, the blueprint. I mean, this is what True Method's been doing from day one. The blueprint's there. You just have to follow it and commit to it, and you can have success. But so many people find different ways to creatively implement it, but not really implement it, and it doesn't work that way usually.
Yeah, and it's not like you're giving away, trade secrets, right?
They were given to me by the
we're
group
not
in the
building
first
the atom.
place.
Yeah, I always tell people we're not building the atom bomb here, folks.
No.
But I think it's great. You share ideas, you see where people go, you can get inspired. Inspired. And then and also, like, be held accountable too. Like, no one wants to go to hopefully the next meeting and be like, I'm stuck. Right.
Well, and that's Gary mentioned self-limiting beliefs, and I do think that's a big part of it. And I remember we were in when we first joined Peer, we were in a certain group, and we started to reach kind of the top of that group, and we were selling at the top of the the MRR, and we were selling. We were, kind of at the top of profitability. And I said, we've got to get in a new group. I love my group, but I need a group that's selling twice as much and twice as profitable. And within a couple of years of getting transitioned into that new group, guess what? We moved our way right up to the top of that group, because you just, you got stuck, and then you see how other people have gotten past those hurdles, or all of a sudden somebody's selling 100K of MRR in a year. And it was like, wow, I thought 30, 40K was an amazing year. Now I know that somebody's selling 100K. We got to sell 100K, or somebody's, up above 20% net profit quarter after quarter. That's where we need to be. So it'll push you like that. And it also just shows you that it can be done. And if you believe in yourself and commit to it, then you can do it just like everyone else in the group.
And so much of security is that belief. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm going to get into it with Mark a little bit deeper, but I just spent 2 weeks with MSPs at Peer and DattoCon, and if I could tell you how many times someone said to me when we talked through, asked them some questions about their security posture, and when I asked, well, why don't all your customers have this? They still say the same things. Well, some customers don't want that and don't value it. I'm like, well, that's your belief system, not theirs. Right. And that's really what we've been talking about in here for 5 years, Phyllis.
Yeah.
Is that we have to tell customers, not the other way around. And their business depends on it. Literally.
Right. Gary always says, if you cannot sell security, then you're not saying the right story.
And Gary, how many times have you heard over the years that, in my market, I can't sell for that price, or in my market, they're not going to adopt those kind of security layers or those security stacks. And then lo and behold, somebody else in that same market is doing it. And it's just one of those beliefs that they think they're in a bad market, that they can't sell that price.
Absolutely. The world is round.
I mean, when I first started working with this community, I heard it all the time. I mean, I still hear it with big enterprises as well. But participating in this call is great because, again, like every week, Gary is preaching, no, you can, and here are the ways ways to do it. Not even just saying it, but showing everybody. So it's awesome. And then we have folks like you, living proof of, the power of that in those peer groups. So let's move on to one of Gary's other favorite subjects, is your sales engine. So what's the target AISP? I'll have to say it since I was unfamiliar with this acronym, all in seat price, for new customers, and what contribution does security play in the overall MRR? You just kind of talked about it a little bit at a high level.
Yeah, I mean, our minimum all-in price, well, per user is 180 minimum, and our minimum deal size is 3,500. Our average customer size is 6,000 now, so we're starting to kind of flush out some of the smaller ones, not take on some of those smaller deals. It's just really hard, especially under, probably 3,500 is too low a number for a monthly minimum. But it allows us to at least, I mentioned the fact that we don't break up our stack. We are always at a minimum. We're going to be including all of these security bundles with it. You have to take it if you're coming on board with us. So our cost to deliver that, is at least 3,500 a month, whether, we actually have some clients that are 3-4 users and paying that much because they have high compliance requirements, or just, a very prestigious type of client base that they need the highest level of service quality and security protecting them. But being able to move up to 30 user plus accounts is just, they just get the importance of security a lot more and are willing to invest more in it. So we really try to get up 30 to 200 users is sort of that sweet spot that we're trying to play in.
Awesome. Well, back over to you, Gary.
Awesome. So, Mark, can I say your nickname?
Of course, Gary, anytime, man. You know that.
Mark, someone, and I don't know who, came up with the nickname for Mark, the Canadian Lou Ferrigno.
That was you.
Yeah, it might have been me.
And it stuck.
Yeah.
Now everybody calls me Lou. But
I know, but I'm working on my guns, so
all right.
Give me another meeting or two. Maybe I can kick your ass. Who knows?
All right,
Awesome. So from the security side, running operations, tell us about kind of that security journey, which is different. Tyler talked about it from a cultural, corporate, but you're in the nuts and bolts of that. So share a little bit about like internally, and then we'll start talking about customers as the second piece to it.
Yeah, I mean, we've all, for our clients and for all of us, the balancing of security and operations, right? Like how we all know that's a balancing act, and you get too much security, you start to handcuff yourself operationally. You start to have a lot of additional steps in order to get to the same result. So especially when this first started, getting implemented back at the Vertex days, when we started getting really serious about this, I certainly had to do a lot of monitoring of our operations and how we were doing things when security started to get implemented inside of our MSP. I was getting a lot of pushback and a lot of flack from staff, where it was like, geez, in order to get to our private cloud before, I could just log in. Now I got to log into a jump box, and I got to get a special one-time password, and I got to go to this. So in order to kind of, even for our clients, in order to, fix an issue, in order to actually do a task, you were adding on time. So we really needed to be aware of that and understand, one, what is the impact and what is the balance there. So that was that's something we all just went through. At the end of the day, there's no getting around some of that.
And that's important, right? Like learning that internally as you run your business, that really is what the culture you have to bring, because every client, they need to start to see it through that same lens faster.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And that's where that culture starts. When your team is operating within those guidelines, when they have a process that's security based, when they have tools that and everything that they have to follow, you're right. That starts to kind of bleed into like conversations with the clients. They're understanding how we're operating, and it's always in everybody's mindset. So that culture did start to get built. But I will say there was a moment that really triggered us to kind of look at this differently. Tyler touched on it. We were in a space where we just had clients that had higher security needs by just naturally with the legal space. Law firms get targeted more. We've seen that, no doubt at all. They get more phishing attacks just because of the information and the transactions they do and the client base that they have. They just get hit more. So we had all of that going. We also had a strong private cloud presence. So now you have all of these really important law firms with, getting hit, and where you're also now hosting them and you're responsible for everything in a private cloud. So those two pieces really kind of had us even early on, I would say, a little ahead of the curve in being security aware. But it was, I think, Ty, what was it, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we got a DDoS attack on our private cloud. And God Almighty, if you want to talk about taking years off of our life, that DDoS attack and seeing all those law firms, our firewall just getting throttled and hit, and we were not prepared for it. We didn't have all the different types of IP hiding and all of these tools and everything that we didn't even really know about. And we spent the better part of like a week battling this and barely made it out with that client base. And it was a real eye opener. And I think, like a lot of our clients, like us, sometimes it takes a major event to really actually move the needle. It unfortunately takes that breach.
We'd like to do it the second best way, but that's the best way to move your maturity forward.
It really is, right? You see the clients that we were talking about, you selling them all the advanced stuff. Finally, something bad happens. Guess what? They come back and saying, I should have listened to you. And they're the ones now signing up for every single tool and hardening all of their processes. Yeah. So that was a little bit of what happened with us. And it was, like Ty said, right after that, we really took it seriously. We got a dedicated security focused staff member. And for us at that size of 25 people, that was pretty aggressive. They were doing some other centralized services stuff, but they really kind of helped Tyler and I lead that security journey internally. We started to TAM ourselves. We started to have internal projects.
We use that word here a lot. And TAM, it's a more of a tremendous term, technology alignment manager. Can you explain what that role is to people and then how it plays into what it was originally and now how it's morphed in security?
Yeah. So, we all talk about standards, and standards in an MSP go across everything from your equipment standards that you have at your clients or anything like that, or technology standards. And then security has become a big piece of that. So how do you figure out where somebody is against your standards and what your standards are? So the first thing is to establish your standards. That's something that peer group has really helped us out with, is what are the real standards? What should we be saying is a minimum standard, as far as we all know what the low-hanging fruit is that you should have warranty on your servers and you shouldn't be running 10-year-old PCs. And, so there's just, all these standards that you establish, and they're really, from the TAM perspective, somebody that's coming in and doing checks and balances against your clients for that standard. And those are in
whether it's IG1, your standards, or secure general security standards that you're doing. That, and that's all they do, right? They have a number of clients. They don't do anything else. They don't do any tickets. They're constantly going through the client base and looking for what's in and out of alignment.
That's right, and that's what feeds kind of that journey of maturity. And for us, that's actually the terminology we used for our libraries, and what our TAMs went through from a new client to even existing clients was this concept of a maturity level. So we actually created 3 maturity levels, largely defined around security. And we established that every client we had should be fully aligned to maturity level 1. Some of those things
Tyler, I want to be 3. Why are we only 1? I want to be 3.
Right. That's the bare minimum. Let's make sure we're all there. And then the next phase was our opportunity. And this all fed our VCIOs. And that was the conversation pieces of where we could say, hey, here's where you're vulnerable and here's where we need to get you aligned to. And that was really kind of fed the journey for our clients as well.
Yeah. And so take us through that process. Like I want to double click into it of how you manage those VCIOs to have those conversations, like to see that they're talking to the right person, that they're presenting things in the right way. And you can tell, right, based on what's getting accepted or not accepted in their recommendations. So like, that's the core of this. Talk about how you look at how you manage those people to see that they're effective.
Well, the easiest piece is where we get started in the life cycle of any new client. Once we've kind of established, it all starts in the sales cycle. So once we have a really great framework and the sales team have done their job and they've really established the right fit client, they set the stage for the VCIO to be more successful. We know that once we're kind of, what do we do about the old clients, right? Like that's the problem. It's going back in time to the old clients that didn't sign up for all of the new, bells and whistles and didn't get the kind of strategy coming through sales. So now the VCIO's got to go back and they got to reframe the industry. They got to go back and saying, hey, like, I know this is what we sold you 6 years ago, but things are evolving. We got to kind of continue to educate and we got to continue to bring that back. So for our client, for our VCIOs, that TAM process is really important. But as it relates to security, it's really kind of understanding what is the most efficient way to present those advanced security options and features to a client that hasn't adopted them. So what we set up is we just called it, again, like Ty said, advanced security. We understood, hey, this is what is our baseline. We made sure that we were able to go back and uniquely include that baseline into old clients, either by a little bit of an uptick or an opt-out option, to make sure that we were trying to move that baseline up on all of our client base. But then when we started talking about the advanced security options, that was a tracked initiative for our VCIOs. So we tried to get some promotion around it. We made sure that there was a dedicated security presentation meeting. Made it, matured it a little bit up, obviously made it look like we put a lot of effort into it so that the client could realize the importance of it just from a presentation perspective. And then from that point on, like Tyler said, every single technology review meeting after that reverts back to that security conversation for a touch point, because it's a journey and it is saying, okay, we're going to put it on the roadmap. Let's return to this. And we keep coming back to that. So now there's inside of the clients, and they're on their own journey. All of a sudden, between one meeting and the next, they've heard about their buddy at the other place that just got a new breach and saying, hey, I remember you were talking to me about that, and I just heard somebody, I'm interested in this now. So it's just a consistent delivery, and you keep coming back to it. It's not a one and done conversation.
Yeah, and I think, to me, I know when I ran VCIOs across 2 MSPs, the weekly meeting, just like a weekly sales meeting, is important. That weekly VCIO meeting where you're talking about, hey, where were you last week? Did you meet with the decision makers?
Yeah.
What recommendations? What was accepted and why? What wasn't accepted? Can we talk through that? Where are you going this week? What are you going to be recommending?
Exactly.
Tell me how you're going to recommend that. And so that they start to get that pattern recognition, right? About what good looks like. And then you hit on it. It's whether it's every month or quarter, depending on the customer. It really is like you're not building on anything. You're going at it like it's the first time, every time, in order to get people to really understand it. But this is the center. Like, you can build all you want, but if your customers don't understand it and buy it, it's not helping them. And that's what we see. That you have to change the security culture, but you also have to change your sales and VCIO culture, because if that doesn't change, nothing. And what you just described and the way you're doing it, I'm hoping everyone is hearing how that feels, right? That this is like this is what your VCIO is, almost like VCISO, right? Like they're taking the security recommendations from your expert and they're just delivering that message.
Yeah, we the other thing we really did early on is we made a real initiative to really impress the importance of cyber insurance on our client base, almost to the point that if the client was not going to get cyber insurance, that they may not stay on as a client. So that was something we did earlier on as well. And cyber insurance, like for a lot of us, has really been the template to which we kind of present against, right? So now it's not us pulling up. They're seeing the questions they're being asked. They're seeing what they're having to be required in order to get coverage. And that's continued to move that needle. And we've been able to kind of revert back to that and saying, hey, let's not get caught flat-footed, right? Part of this is also making sure you guys have in place what you need to, because this is continuing to evolve. This is a new type of insurance out there. It's not like, property and car, automotive, that's been around for for forever. This is new. So these insurance companies every year are starting to learn about this, and they're learning, hey, holy crap, if we demanded that client had this control in place or whatever, we wouldn't have just been paying out all this money. So this continues to evolve, and we've really used that, the VCIOs, because we get into that. Hey, who sends the form? They send the form to the VCIO saying, oh, I got this new form. So we've used that a lot as well to say, hey, let's make sure that you're in a good place. These are the things you have to have, and these are the things that are coming in the near future, like vulnerability scanning and stuff. Some of the new conversations where they're starting to ask this stuff. There's a reason why, because next year when you go to sign up, if you don't have it, you're not going to get coverage.
Mark, that's really awesome. I hope everybody heard that. Phyllis, how many times have we done a survey and find out, we asked the question, how many of you had a conversation about cyber insurance with every one of your clients, and what are the results? It's never 100%, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's great, because that's also, as we talk about on this call, you're making the business case for organizations.
Exactly.
It's a little bit fear-based, but not totally fear-based. And it's also practical, right? It's you must be insured in case something happens.
Mark, you mentioned we've been handed this wedge.
Yes.
To not use it with every account, it would be disrespectful to them and to us.
Totally.
And it gives us a jumping off point, the way you described it, to have this conversation. And then once they start to see it and understand it, then future recommendations get easy.
Yeah. And experience, right? Like, I mean, we have this luxury of this huge legal client base. And again, it does bring in cheat codes for us, because our law firms are aware of this, especially with the VCOs, especially for someone like me, who I still manage most of our top clients and biggest firms. They know that we know kind of what's going on out there, and our ability to share our experiences and what some other firms have, like, that has weight. It does come in. There is stories to be told of people who didn't make the right decision. Again, it's not fear mongering, it's just reality. And that goes a long way. And so there is a trust factor that does get built up when you have the luxury of that vertical expertise and all of the other, experiences that you can draw on and pull from. And that's helped us a lot too, especially in that vertical.
So tell me a little bit about what role education, thought leadership, customer marketing, all of that, what role does that play in terms of outside the VCIO of changing people's perspective and educating them about the journey?
Well, having a security focused individual or department, depending on the size of your business, where that is their primary means to deliver both internally and to set standards for your clients, that has really helped us. I mean, somebody's got to really champion that. So depending on where you guys are at, or where any MSP is at in their size or journey, if it's a role that can have that as a primary focus and maybe not dedicated, I think that's really important. You do have to have somebody to champion and lead that. It can't always be at the C level. They have to be fully on board and support it, but might not be the right people, right? So I think from the perspective of educating kind of internally and continuing to kind of move that and making sure that's a focus point, that really helped us. Like I told you and mentioned, even when we were a fraction of the size, we got somebody in that position who really drove that for Tyler and I, and kind of helped us down that journey. And then of course we have a department obviously now, and then now with ITS, a much bigger, very big security department. But so that piece has really helped us, because again, somebody's got to keep their finger on the pulse. Somebody's got to understand what's happening in the industry and where it's moving. It's got to come through that kind of focus point, and then that goes out to the rest of the company. And we make sure that from our own internal tabletop exercises, and just making sure we're kind of keeping everything in our own backyard where it needs to be. That's that kind of ongoing education and maturity that happens there. As far as for our clients, we've made a point to make sure that we're the webinar content and everything that we're putting out there, as far as newsletters, all of the information that we're putting out through our social media channels. There's just a lot of ongoing security awareness focus there. I'd say that's
Do
probably one
you
of
have
the
a
bigger
process to
focus
make sure
areas.
your clients are following you on LinkedIn and social
Yeah,
media? Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's
yeah,
really
exactly.
important.
Yeah, and that's been
Establishing yourself as thought leaders, especially in a vertical, like we've been fortunate enough from the beginning to stay focused on legal. So we have spent year after year, well, month after month. I mean, we're always putting out content, and we usually do a legal version of the content and then just a generic business version of it. But always lots, several webinars a year. We participate in the associations, the trade shows. We do speaking events at a lot of the legal conferences. So we want to be the ones that are perceived as, if you want legal IT expertise, you're going to go to PACE. And that's your warm 250 right there, year after year. Eventually, there's so many of these firms I've been speaking to for a decade that haven't been clients for whatever reason, and they usually come around at some point. And we close them because we're always out in front of them with relevant content. And for the last several years, that's almost been exclusively security.
That's awesome. So I just, as we approach the last few minutes here, I want to recap a few things that I heard. One is make sure that you first make security a priority inside your MSP. That is step one. Two, as soon as you have the scale, take those dedicated functions and make them dedicated roles, specifically around alignment. It's when you can, bringing in a security expert, someone who's going to lead that charge is important. Using your VCIOs, really training them on how to build that relationship, and then helping them through education and thought leadership so that they don't have to do all the work. So that's the main thing that I heard. And again, all of this, to do it, you have to run a mature operation that's profitable. Like, without running a profitable business, and I know you, Tyler, when your business wasn't profitable, and I've known you when it was, you're much happier when it was, and you're much more secure.
Very important part of the business, being profitable. Yes.
Yeah.
Allows
But
you to,
it's a prerequisite for security, right?
Yes. And a lot of other things. I mean, yes, you need to be able to invest in your people, be able to invest in some R&D, be able to have a buffer in case the economy turns, big client leaves, whatever it may be. You need that protection.
Yeah. So this has been awesome. And I'm hoping what people heard today was that you have built a very, very successful MSP. You've gotten it now to the next phase with an acquisition, and your security focus, your security culture really has been the spark plug, right? That ignited everything. And so, Phyllis, I always say that security is also good business.
Yeah, and I agree. And here are living examples. And I have to point out the one thing that you just kind of mentioned at the end, Tyler and Mark, is really getting your name out there and being seen as a thought leader. Not just amongst MSPs, but really amongst the vertical or whoever your clients are, right? And so I think that's really, I think that's great, and something that everyone should look into.
Developing your brand doesn't mean throwing a ton of money at marketing. Like it helps, but it's more getting yourself out there and finding your niche and really promoting yourself and adding value, and not always looking just for the quick sale, but really, establishing that brand and recognition. So when people want to change, you're the first people that they're going to call.
Yeah, living wherever that is, whether it's a vertical or not, it's living where your customers live, being where your customers are, and being there first to help, not just to be there. Are you ready to buy yet?
Yeah.
How can I help you with this? Can I share this with you? You get them into your funnel. You get them into your social media. You've become an organization of value. And as you said, when they're ready or something happens, you're going to get a look. And it's really the way we build MSPs today, because trying to take someone who never met you before and turn them into a prospect is very expensive. Very expensive. All right. Well, listen, we are at the top of the hour. Phyllis, great job today. Tyler and Mark, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm hoping everybody gets a great feeling as they go back and listen to this, about your journey, and congratulations on all your success.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Gary.
So much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, fellas.
Everybody make it a great day.